Hey everyone, Rick here, and folks, welcome to the Social Media Showdown for Battlefields of Mana. As you may know, maybe not, I put out a call to action. Please come up with a custom army. In fact, if you still want to do this, and haven't already, I'll put the rules for creating armies in the description below. So I got 8 total responses, which was fantastic. I got 5 YouTubers, 3 Facebookers. I wrote down their unit profiles. I took pictures of all the armies as well. We're going to do YouTubers are going to be Lunar Knights, and Facebookers are going to be Regal Guard. So we're going to pit YouTubers up against Facebookers. Again, it's 5-3 right now, but as more come in, I'll add them to the piles. And if we have to do a couple Lunar Knights against each other in a Civil War style fashion, that is completely fine. But I want to know which social media platform has the better army creation specialist. Of course, at the end of the day, I'm playing both sides, so my tactics may not be very sound. We're going to let the dice do the talking, but I think it'll just be a lot of fun. So the battlefield is very simple because all of the battles are going to take place on this same field. We can rotate it around, though, because depending on who we're playing as, we may want a different side. But let's go ahead and take a peek at what we have out here. We just have a couple dwellings which block movement and line of sight, and one large forest which cuts movement in half and provides a cover save. A cover save to any army or any unit that's being shot through it. So we're just going to give these a little shuffle up here and see who the first match is going to be. So I'm going to do a video for each battle. And I'm not going to do them, I don't know what you would call it, live style. I'm just going to be after each turn or after each round. I'm going to come back with what we've done. I may film, or record rather, some pivotal dice rolls, but for the most part, it's just going to kind of be a recap fashion. Here's the YouTubers. Who is going first? YouTuber Hal M. of the Lunar Knights. Hal has a decent-sized army here with 2 archers, a Spearmen unit, a Halberdier unit, a Men-at-Arms unit, and a Peasant Militia unit. Hal also, if I recall correctly, gave some tactics of how he wanted the units to support one another as well. So then, for the Facebook side of things, who's it going to be? It's going to be Chris S., who also has a fairly sizable army with 3 archers, a heavy cav, and 2 swordsmen. So when you compare the two, Chris's army does have 1 more archer than Hal's, but with 2 swordsmen instead of, well, I guess pretty much everything else is different. Heavy cav and 2 swordsmen versus Spears, Halberdiers, Men-at-Arms, and Peasant Militia. So that's going to be very interesting to see how these go up against each other. 6 units to 6 units. They're same size in terms of how many units there are. Chris's is just a little more range heavy. So we will get these deployed. We're actually going to roll off to see who deploys first and who goes first. And I will be back after deployment. Okay, folks, and here is deployment. I mean, is that just not an absolutely gorgeous sight? 2 full armies deployed on either side of a battlefield. Anyway, Chris won the role to deploy first and go first. That's both a blessing and a curse, because deploying first means your opponent gets to deploy kind of against what you've put out there, but you do get to go first, so you can kind of get your troops in position. You also get to pick which side of the battlefield you want. Chris decided he wanted this side of the battlefield closest to the trees. I mean, it's pretty much either way. You could have gone this way, where you'd have, a dwelling there and still be close to the trees, or this way. It's basically the same thing. You'd have trees there and a dwelling over there. But the reason he picked this side is he wanted to get some archers into the woods. Now, when you're in the woods shooting out of the woods, that's fine. Your opponent doesn't get a cover save. So not only are his archers going to be protected by the woods, they'll be shooting out, and, he won't have to worry about Hal getting cover saves. But anyway, so Chris started out by deploying some archers there. he didn't deploy his heavy cavalry till the very end because Hal, unfortunately for Chris, has some units with polearm, and those just eat cavalry alive. So he wanted to hold off as long as he could. Unfortunately, because he deployed first, Hal ends up being the last one who deployed. So Hal was able to stick his Halberdiers kind of right in the center there. Chris is not terribly upset about that. He wanted to put his heavy cav right in the center for the most part so he can shoot up the center and kind of go either direction depending on how things look. But we do have spears in support of the flank of these archers. These archers are going to have quite a field of view. Stick them there and they can shoot anyone coming this way, anyone coming up the side there. So the Halberdiers are the strongest melee unit. Well, I shouldn't say strongest because these men-at-arms are also incredibly powerful in melee. So we're pretty much covered. Split with this dwelling right in the center, essentially. I deployed these guys over here. We have archers on the flank with men-at-arms right up the center, and we have these Peasant Militia there. The Peasant Militia are going to be fantastic for getting in the way of some of this massive amount of archer fire, and also can, get in the way if anyone starts coming after our archers over there. Chris, very simply, swordsmen over here can shoot up this side, deal with the spears, and maybe tangle with those archers. Swordsmen over here, just outside of the woods there, so they have a clear line of path straight up that way. Again, archers into the woods, another unit of archers here. So again, they are going to have a fantastic field of view at whatever comes at them that way. And of course, just the heavy cav charging right up the center. So that is deployment. I will return after round 1. Normally, I'm going to do it after each turn, but round 1 we'll just finish both players' turns because round 1's really just going to be about moving both units, both armies up. Not a whole lot of combat, but I'll explain anything that does end up happening on that front. By the way, this lasts 6 rounds, so we are on round 1. At the end of round 6, we'll tally up who has scored the most points and declare the winner, but we'll be back after round 1. All right, folks, this is the end of round 1. So Chris moved his troops forward first, and we did what we set out to do. We got 2 units of archers into the woods. We moved up swordsmen, and you'll notice a lot of the other units as well are all kind of right there in this line. Because I had measured, I did not want them to get shot by Hal's archers on the first turn, so they moved up as far as they could, with being 100% safe from shot. So if Hal's archers moved up, because you can move up once and then shoot, or move twice. And so measuring from the archer's range plus the archer's movement distance if they moved once and then shot, which would have been at a penalty anyway, but even so, we made sure to keep out of archer range. Now, we moved swords up. We moved these archers up, so they still have kind of an option over here, but mostly right in the center here. And then, of course, the heavy cav right in the middle as well. So in response, Hal moved up these archers just far enough that they are still out of range of these archers. Now, if these archers want to move, they can. However, that'll be a penalty if they end up shooting. But we want to get shots in at these swords, or maybe even take the, even though they're going to get a cover save, start shooting at those archers in the forest. But we've developed a column here. Peasant Militia are going to be absorbing a lot of these blows, because look at that. That's a 4-point unit of men-at-arms. And we don't want them losing any casualties on their way up the battlefield. So they have some meat shields. That's such a Lunar Knight thing to do, is stick a unit of Peasant Militia out in front so that they can get, because they're slow. Men-at-arms are super slow, so we wanted them to have some safety as they move up. I'm not even sure if, from Hal's perspective, we don't even know if these swordsmen are going to be moving up. They may just be there to protect the flank of those archers. But they may get in the mix depending on what they see these guys do. Now, over here, we saw that those archers kind of went that way, so we said, well, let's move the spears up here, protect the flank of these archers. But also, I like the idea of pairing up with these swordsmen. Spears against swords is fairly even. The spears have a better offensive advantage. The swords have a decent defensive advantage. But we'll see. I think that's just going to be a one-on-one combat there. We moved up the Halberdiers. Halberdiers are also fairly slow. We have these archers at an angle. So if the heavy cav move up, if we get engaged with them, hopefully closer on our side of the battlefield, we can start shooting at the heavy cav in the flank, and we'll have to deal with that. There's just so many freaking archers over here. But that is how things are looking at the end of round 1. Round 2, folks, is going to be a lot bloodier. We will be back after Chris's turn 2. We're going to start separating it by turns. Okay, folks, this is the end of Regal Guard, aka General Chris, his second turn. All right, so here's what we did. We figured at this point, with our swords here and their archers that way, we're just going to move up. Now, because worst case scenario, the spears move into us. If things start going south, that spearman unit can start running this way. So as long as we keep the battle over here, hey, who knows? We may take the day and then be able to cross over there. Or at worst, now, if they eliminate us or, run through us, they'd still have quite a ways to go to come around this way. Or reform and join whatever they want to do over there. So anyway, that was a double move. So no close combat there this turn. All right, archers here took a shot at those halberdiers. I almost immediately regretted moving those halberdiers up as far as I did, but I didn't want it to just be a game of, okay, move up a little bit over here, move up a little bit over here. Who's going to be the first to cross into the line of fire? But then I thought maybe I should have had those archers stick in front of the halberdiers to kind of act as a meat shield, because those archers, without even moving, were able to take some shots at the halberdiers. Now, Chris rolled really well, I will say that, on attack. We defended a couple shots, but we still took 3 wounds over here on Hal's halberdiers. So 1 halberdier dead and another wound on the unit itself. We left our heavy cavalry here. Why? Well, look at this. Hal's archers are already within range and line of sight of the heavy cavalry. So on their turn, Hal's going to get some shots off at that 5-point unit of heavy cavalry. Why did I leave them there? I was going to move them up. They have enough range of movement, 10 inches, to get to the halberdiers. Now, the problem with that is Hal is going to be able to shoot right into the flank of us if we do that. And these halberdiers are so slow, I think we can stall another turn sitting there while the halberdiers move up, and then we can move into them. We get collision hits. As soon as we come into contact with another unit, we get collision hits. Now, if they move into contact with us, we don't get those. So we're going to let the halberdiers move up, and then we'll move into them. But I think we can survive a round of fire from those archers because of our special defensive ability and high armor. We'll see, though. It all depends on the dice, but we'll see. We're taking a risk here. Those shots are going to hit those heavy cav next turn no matter what. I didn't want to back them up any. We're going to be moving in, but I think we're going to have to survive a round of fire first. Now, both of these units of archers, both concentrated fire into the Peasant Militia. The first archer unit didn't roll so well. Not a single wound. The second archer unit rolled a little bit better. We were able to kill off 1 Peasant Militia. And then the swordsmen up here just went same as over here. They decided to go straight up. Because now Hal has to decide, what does he want to do with those swordsmen? Does he want to keep moving this column forward and maybe get involved here or get involved in there? Or now that this is all happening, it's going to force him to say, do we, stick our Peasant Militia over there to stop them? Ooh, that may be what we do. Because, okay, we'll talk about that on Hal's turn too. Chris may have made a slight mistake, but, we're going to leave it as it is. And maybe not. We don't know. We will be back with Hal's turn 2. All right, folks. End of Hal's turn 2. Lunar Knights turn 2 is over. Round 2 is over. Moving on to round 3. But let's recap what happened here. So, spears always get to go first in close combat, in the first round, I should say, of the close combat that they're involved in. So they did get to go first, and with the swordsmen, they traded a wound apiece. Swordsmen didn't have as great of an attack roll, Spearmen had a fantastic attack roll, but Swordsmen had a fantastic defense roll. So still only a wound apiece there. Archers shot into the Heavy Cavalry. It was a mixed bag, but honestly, the Heavy Cavalry defense roll was pretty good. So just a wound there. These archers shot straight into the swordsmen but didn't do a damn thing. It was a combination of a lackluster attack roll and a really good defense roll. What we decided to do, so this hopefully this doesn't make or break the game, but here's what we decided to do. Peasant Militia moved up just into the edge of the woods. Now, and where they're positioned, they are blocking shots to the men-at-arms from both of these archer units. They are in the way. And then once they get up even closer and start actually, maybe attacking these archers, that'll be a thing for Chris to kind of decide what he wants to do with those archers. The men-at-arms actually wheeled and was able to navigate and to move into the flank of the swordsman. So on Chris's next turn, it was a double move, so no close combat this turn. Chris is going to have to roll to decide what he wants to do. This is a bad position for these swords. These swords have to decide, do we want to, take a close combat on our flank like this? Or do we want to attempt to reform, which may fail, but do we want to attempt to reform and face the men-at-arms at our front, but that would give our flank up to the archers. Now, archers shooting into the flank of a unit get +1 to all their attack dice, plus these men-at-arms are really powerful anyways. This is just a bad spot for those swordsmen to be in. So I have to see what Chris wants to do about that. But honestly, for a while there, I was thinking, man, I probably should have switched these units. The men-at-arms should have been here. They have a better defense. These Halberdiers really don't have much defense. So having the Halberdiers kind of out in the open like this, that's not the best. We did move them up slightly. We moved them up just enough so that if the Heavy Cavalry does charge us, we will still get a shot into their flank, because we need to be able to draw a line from the center of the banner bearer to the center of the banner bearer, and we measured it out so that if the Heavy Cav does charge into the Halberdiers, then we'll still be able to get shots at them. If we moved up any further, then our own unit would be blocking shots. So we'll have to see how that ends up. I think wish I would have had the Halberdiers over there and the men-at-arms over here, but it's too late now. But we're moving into round 3. Top of round 3 with Chris's turn. Okay, folks, we're back at the end of Regal Guard, turn 3. Chris and his archers. Oh my gosh, I definitely misplayed the Halberdiers. So what ended up happening was I was so focused on protecting the men-at-arms by putting the Peasant Militia there to block shots from here, thinking that they would absorb the shots. I neglected to even consider that now these Halberdiers were in line of fire of both of them, and they absolutely are. So within range, both of these units were able to target these archers. They took it on the chin here first, and they did really well. They only took a wound from that, but then these two other units combined ended up doing all of this. So that unit is cut in half or more, in this case more, losing 4 Halberdiers. We're gonna have to rethink what we're gonna do with those. Chris moved the Heavy Cavalry back. They figured, what are we even doing? Those Halberdiers are so slow moving up the center that we're just going to back out of range of these archers. Now, these archers will still be able to get a shot in at them, but they'll have to move first, which means they'll be penalized on their shots. So they'll move and then take aim and see what they can do there. Good news over here is the spears did more wounds to the swords than they received, so that's going a little better. And then the swordsmen brace themselves. The swordsmen up here actually tried to break away. They tried to break away from the men-at-arms, but they failed to do so because what they wanted to do is break away and then move into combat with the archers. But they failed to break away. And then once they failed to break away, they decided not to reform, because by reforming, sure, they would be on an even playing field in terms of initiative with the men-at-arms, because being attacked in the flank in close combat only gives the attacker a bonus to their initiative roll. It doesn't give the attacker a bonus to their attack dice like it does if you're getting shot in the flank. So they figure they'll take the shots from the archers head on, and then they'll just, have to deal with however they deal with that on the side there. But they are bracing themselves, so that'll be an extra defense die when they're defending against Hal's attack, which is going to happen now. The interesting thing is going to be, what does Hal decide to do with the Halberdiers? All right, folks, end of Hal, aka the Lunar Knights, turn 3, also known as the end of round 3. We're going to be beginning round 4, which is the halfway point of the game. So here's where we are halfway through the game. Down here, I was super happy to see that Hal's spearmen were able to do quite a bit to the swords offensively. But unfortunately, the swords, they didn't even have that. They actually had a really good offensive roll. At the spears, I just rolled really poorly for the spears in defense. So they ended up evening out. So that's how it is. It's literally completely even right there right now. So here's what we did. We backed the Halberdiers up. Unfortunately, that means they're still in range with the archers. We backed them up as far as we could. However, we moved our archers up because we knew we were going to take shots at the heavy cavalry anyway. And so let's move up. So now they are just barely blocking the shot from those archers. So they're in the way. And they did take shots at the heavy cavalry, managed to kill off one of the heavy cav. We moved up twice to get into contact with those archers who get a free volley. When you move into the front arc of a archer unit to get into close combat like this, the ranged unit does get a free volley off at a penalty, but the Peasant Militia were able to block all their shots. That's incredible. And then over here, shots from the archers and men-at-arms attacking did 3 wounds to the swordsmen, but I actually forgot to do the swordsman attack back. So let's go ahead and do that first before we finish off this turn. So swordsmen, 2 figures adjacent, which means 2 attacks. They get 2 dice per attack, so that's going to be 4. Now, men-at-arms have armor 2, but they have shield wall, which means 6s explode. So first we're attacking, so swords need 3s or better to hit. And this is what I'm talking about. For some reason, when I'm rolling for Chris, I'm rolling not too bad at all. So 3, 4, and 2 6s. 6s don't explode or anything for swordsmen, but that means we get 4 dice in defense for the men-at-arms, and we're going to see how much of this we can block, and our 6s do explode. And of course, we roll no 6s, but we do block, unfortunately, only 2 of it. So 2 wounds still get through, which means 1 dead men-at-arms. So in the end, not the best trade-off there, but we'll see what the next half of the game is like when we begin round 4, starting with Chris. Okay, folks, we are back at the end of turn 4 for the Regal Guard, Chris's Regal Guard. Good and bad news for Hal. Good news is a Halberdier is still alive. So here's what's going to happen. When you cut a unit in half, you score a victory point. If you completely eliminate the unit, you get the rest of their points. That's a 4-point unit of Halberdiers. Right now, the Regal Guard have only scored 1 point because they managed to cut it in half at least. But what ended up happening was we moved the archers, we moved those archers in the woods up a little bit as well. Both of these units of archers took shots at the Halberdiers. They were not able to completely wipe out that unit. That unit still has 1 wound left, which means on Hal's turn, he can sneak that Halberdier behind this building, which essentially is going to mean that Halberdier is going to live, probably, because I can't think of a way to get archers in 2 turns all the way over there or there to then fire at that Halberdier. So that Halberdier may be safe, and it's thanks to the fact that those archers had to move, which penalized their shots a bit. Then those Mounted Cavalry said, hey, because these archers actually moved in front of the Mounted Heavy Cavalry, to block the shots from those archers. And the Heavy Cav says, you know what, if I'm just going to sit here, I'm a 5-point unit. Let me go see if I can help out somewhere. So I'm thinking maybe I might wheel them around here to go help the swordsman out with the Heavy Cav, or the men-at-arms. So swordsman here, did I even try to break away? I can't remember. Because I think I may have, or I may have just been happy with that last thing. Because we have 2 turns left after this for, now we haven't done Hal's turn yet, turn 4. But Chris only has 2 turns left. If he can just keep that unit alive, that'll be good. So he just braced himself there. Over here didn't go as well. They were even, but as you can see, the spearmen have pulled ahead. So if the spearmen, maybe with help of those archers, we'll see what Hal decides to do, can clear out that unit, that'll be 2 points. Otherwise, they've each scored a point for having these units. And then these archers tried to break away, but couldn't. They could not roll high enough to break away from those Peasant Militia. Those Peasant Militia are... They only cost a point, but my God, have they been a pain in Chris's side. So they are going to be in a close combat now, which archers should never be in, and they are bracing themselves. So we braced ourselves, moved up. Both of these shot, couldn't kill off the Halberdiers, and this isn't going as well for those swordsmen. So that is where we are, and then we'll be back after Hal's turn 4. Okay, folks, end of round 4, thus the end of Hal's Lunar Knights turn 4. So we ran the Halberdier behind the hut, and I think he's pretty much safe. So that secures 3 points at least. As soon as I say anything good about the Lunar Knights, I just roll so poorly for them in defense. They had knocked these swords down to only 3 health left in the whole unit. But I rolled so poorly for the spears in defense. Now it's back to being completely evened out again. These archers, I was going to take shots at these archers up here because I figured those archers are eventually going to try to hit our men-at-arms in the rear. But then I remembered they're in the forest. They'd get a dodge roll. So I took shots at those archers. I don't know if that was the best idea or not. I was able to kill one archer doing that. I was going to dedicate those archers to these swordsmen, but I figured the spears will handle them. Well, now probably not. So maybe I will turn those around and start shooting at those swords just to eliminate that unit. Peasant Militia did not take any wounds from the archers in melee, but did a wound in return. Up here, shots into the swordsman, killed off a swordsman. But then in this melee exchange, the swordsman did a wound to the men-at-arms, but the men-at-arms, unfortunately, were unable to do anything to the swords. I'm just rolling so crazily. So that is it for round 4. The game is 2/3 over. We are going to start at the top of round 5 with Chris's Regal Guard. Okay, end of Chris's Regal Guard, turn 5. Oh my goodness, I rolled so poorly in defense for... Poor Hal. Oh my gosh, Hal's men-at-arms. These archers moved out of the woods, turned and shot into the rear. However, they didn't get a bonus for shooting into the rear at this time because of their move and shoot penalty kind of washed it out. So they're just face-up dice essentially, but still I rolled 3 hits and I couldn't roll a save to save my life. So the men-at-arms are now cut in half. These archers took shots at these archers, killing one of them. We decided to brace ourselves with the swordsman because after we cut that men-at-arms unit in half, the Regal Guard's like, we have the point advantage right now. No need to risk anything. If you want to come take these swordsman points, you're going to have to do it on your turn. We move the Heavy Cavalry around like this. With 1 turn left, there's not enough time for them to hit those men-at-arms and do a combat. At the very least, they'll get collision hits when they move into their flank. I think that was pretty much everything. These archers here tried to break away again, but couldn't. They failed to break away again, so they're bracing themselves there. Those swordsmen up there, once again, bracing themselves. So right now it's 3-1 because the Regal Guard have cut this unit in half, that unit in half, and that unit in half. So that's 3 points. The Lunar Knights have cut this unit in half, and that is it. They are close to cutting that unit in half, which will be a point number 2. And if they can finish this unit off, that'll be point number 3 to tie it up. I don't see how they can conceivably win, but I can see how they can maybe tie it up. But that's assuming they don't lose any more of their own troops. So we'll be back after Hal's turn 5. All right, folks, this is the end of round 5. Hal's turn 5 is concluded. It's going to be a photo finish in round 6, the final round. I can just feel it. Look at this. Banner bearer on banner bearer. We did decide to turn the archers and shoot into the swords. They are down to a figure apiece. 1 wound on the Peasant Militia. Peasant Militia failed to do any wounds to those archers. This combination of archers and men-at-arms have completely annihilated this unit of swords down to the banner bearer. So, at this point, here is how things are shaping up. Now, well, I won't get into any because we still have 1 turn left for Chris to use all these archers to hopefully do something to get some more points. We'll see what Chris decides to do at the end of Chris's final turn for the Regal Guard. Oh man, despite my misplays, I could not have hoped for a more insane ending. This is the end of Regal Guard turn 6. Chris's final turn is now over. The game for Chris is over, essentially. So, here's what happened. We reformed those archers. Both of these archer units poured all their shots into this archer unit. They figured they need points. This wound wasn't here. They just need to do 4 wounds between those 2 archer units to cut this unit in half, and that would be a victory point. At that point, I don't see how Hal could come back. However, moving and shooting penalty negated the fact that they were in their flank, so they were just straight up dice, and I believe in that instance they didn't do a single thing. Over here, they didn't move. They were shooting into the flank. They got the flank bonus. They were only able to do a single wound. So, these archers successfully broke away. Finally, 6 shots. Now, move and shoot penalty applied. So, 6 shots with a penalty. The Peasant Militia rolled their worst defense roll yet. They got cut in half. That's a half point. Because they only cost a point. So cutting them in half is a half point victory point. Heavy Cavalry. They didn't have enough movement to charge into combat, so they moved in and got their collision hits. Now they moved in and shuffling up together, shuffled the men-at-arms up closer. In between combats, you kind of want to maximize who's in contact. So before this swordsman was over here, and that meant only 2 troops were in contact with him at a time. So we're just shuffling it in like the bodies in combat kind of pouring in together. Maximize who's in contact, just like the Heavy Cavalry is now doing that there with those men-at-arms. So anyway, Heavy Cavalry got collision hits. They did 2 hits, but the men-at-arms were able to block both of them. So that swordsman braced, this remaining swordsman braced, and we did shots, 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 and that's all that they did. So Chris's game is over. What does Chris have? He has 3.5 victory points. 1 point for cutting them in half, 1 point for cutting them in half, 1 point for cutting them in half, half a point for cutting the Peasant Militia in half. Hal right now has 1 point for cutting this unit of swordsmen in half, 1 point for cutting that unit of swordsmen in half. So that is 2 points. So it's 3.5 to 2 on Hal's turn. If Hal can kill this guy and that guy, that'll be 2 more points. It'll be 4 to 3.5. But in doing so, he cannot lose this guy. And the other problem here is even though those Heavy Cavalry weren't able to combat here, if Hal's men-at-arms attack this swordsman, that'll trigger these Heavy Cavalry to also attack. Now, do I think that between the swordsmen and these Heavy Cavalry, they'll be able to wipe out 3 men-at-arms? I don't know. But what I'm hoping for is that on Hal's turn, his archers finish off that swordsman, and so this unit doesn't even need to engage in a close combat. so they won't risk losing anybody. So hopefully, we're hoping the archers kill him, and this spearman kills him. Now, I should say, now, honestly, I'm not trying to favor Hal, because I love Chris, but I just been rolling so poorly for Hal in defense, and I feel like I truly misplayed his Halberdiers, because that's a 4-point unit of Halberdiers, that I'm just kind of glad to see that Hal has a chance. We're moving into the final turn of the game. Bottom of round 6, turn 6 for Hal and his Lunar Knights, and we'll see what happens. I may end up coming back to record the final die roll if it comes down to it. Okay, so how often does a game come down to the final die roll? Here's what happened. We're not done yet. In the ranged attack phase, this unit of archers was able to kill that last swordsman. So these men-at-arms can brace themselves. They will not engage in close combat this turn. They are done. So that swordsman unit has been eliminated. Down here, these archers were only able to do 1 wound to this swordsman. This lone spearman has to not only survive, but also do 1 wound. And this swordsman's bracing himself, so he's going to get an extra defense die. This is it. This determines who wins the game. There is no tie, because Chris and the Regal Guard have 3.5 points right now. Hal has 3 points. 3 to 3.5. Can't get much closer than that. We are now going to roll. Because this is absolutely insane. It's this combat right here. This is what it all comes down to. It's basically a duel. A duel between the last remnants of these 2 units to see who wins the game. Here we go. Are you ready? We're rolling for initiative first. I'm going to roll Hal's spearmen first. Now, they're so far gone, they'd both be panicked, but because they each have the same amount of troops left, neither one's panicked. So here's Hal's spearmen. Initiative bonus of a 2 plus whatever this die is. Oh, God. It's a 1. So that means it's at the very least going to be simultaneous, but if anything, the swordsman will probably go first. So 2 plus a 1 is a 3. Now the swordsman's also a +2, so a 2 plus 3 is a 5. The swordsman attacks first. So that means we have to hope that the spearman stays alive to even be able to attack back. Here is the swordsman's attack roll. 2 dice, needing 3s or better to hit. Oh my gosh. The swordsman completely misses. We don't even need a defense die roll. So here we go. Now is the final die roll, because here's the swordsman. Now the swordsman has to at least hit once. If the swordsman doesn't hit, the spearman has to hit at least once. If he doesn't hit even once, then we don't even roll for defense and the game's just over. So here is the spearman's attack roll. 2 dice, also needing 3s or better. Oh my gosh. A single 4. Oh, this is not good. This is probably really not good, because Chris now has 2 dice, because he'll get 1 die and also his brace die to try to get a 4. On 2 dice, this is for the win. Well, not necessarily, because even if the swordsman fails this defense die roll, they still could potentially parry save it on 6s. But they may not even need a parry save, but this could be the game if the swordsman gets a 4 or better on 1, not both, but just 1 of these 2 dice. And he does. The swordsman with the brace die blocks the 4 and is left with a single wound left. And that, folks, is the game. Holy smokes, victory for Chris and the Regal Guard. So looking back and kind of a recap of, tallying up the victory points and whatnot, here's what we've got. So for the Regal Guard, they were able to eliminate half a point of Spearmen for a point. I'm sorry, half a unit of Spearmen for a point. Half or more of a unit of Halberdiers for a point. Half or more a unit of men-at-arms for a point. And unfortunately, half a point for having that Peasant Militia unit. So that's 3.5 points for the Regal Guard. Hal and the Lunar Knights were able to completely eliminate one full unit of swordsmen. That's the only full unit eliminated in this game. They were also able to cut in half another unit of swordsmen, and that is it. They had some casualties on some other units, but the other units are still intact with more than half of their unit remaining. So it ends up being 3.5 to 3. Victory by half a point for Chris and the Regal Guard. Oh my gosh. It literally came down to the final die roll. I can't even believe it. I love when that happens, though. It just shows how kind of balanced everything was. Even with my misplays and crappy die rolls, but when you think about the die rolls, I also rolled every once in a while kind of, piss poor for Chris as well, especially there at the end where his swordsman just got completely wiped out. But anyway, I mean, God, that was fantastic. If the rest of these social media, what did I call it? Social media something. I have to rewatch the video. But this is insane. I had an absolute blast. If the rest of these go anything like this one, I am in for a treat. I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. Congrats to Chris, Hal. A solid army. It's probably my fault, but absolutely fantastic time. Thank you all so much for watching, and until next time.